Paracycling was originally developed by blind athletes. Michael tells us more about his exciting sport. Paracycling started in the 1980s, when visually impaired and blind athletes began participating in cycling competitions on tandem bikes. The next step was in 1988, the inclusion of road cycling at the Paralympic Games. And then in 1996 in Atlanta, the first track races were introduced. Finally, in 2004, hand cycling was added to the program.
Basically,
many different disability groups can participate in cycling. Blind and visually impaired athletes on tandem bikes, cerebral palsy athletes compete on bicycles or tricycles. If the cerebral palsy is so severe that the athletes have balancing difficulties, the tricycles only compete on the road. Then there are the cyclists with a physical disability. That means amputees or athletes with spinal cord injuries who compete on bicycles. And there are the hand bikers, athletes who usually use a wheelchair. They also compete only in road races. Visually impaired athletes, athletes with a physical disability, and athletes with cerebral palsy can compete on the track as well as on the road. There are differences between track cycling and road cycling. On the track, you have the 1,000-meter time trial for visually impaired athletes, athletes with a physical disability, and athletes with cerebral palsy. Each athlete races from a standing start 1,000 meters against the clock. The next event is the individual pursuit. There are two different distances according to the disability, 3,000 meters and 4,000 meters. There are two rounds, the qualification round and the final round, where the fastest races against the second fastest and the third fastest against the fourth. And finally, there's the sprint event. It's only for tandems. There's also a team sprint. Then you have the other big section, the road races. There's the individual road race for all classes, bicycles, tandems, tricycles, as well as hand cycles. The first of each class who crosses the finish line wins. Circuits can be hilly and pretty challenging. The second event on the road is the individual time trial. Every athlete starts alone and competes against the clock. The athletes start in reverse order from the last World Championship result. In principle, every athlete that competes needs to have a license from its cycling federation. We compete according to the rules of the International Cycling Union, UCI, which now also includes rules for hand cycling. Furthermore, there are additional rules for classification. Since the 1st of January 2007, paracycling is part of the UCI, so the sport is organized by the UCI in cooperation with the IPC.
Organisiert oder geführt wird, sondern jetzt vom Internationalen Radsportverband in Kooperation mit dem IPC.